Let's talk about Keith Moon. Keith is one of those figures in rock history who almost doesn't seem real. It's kind of a shame that he's remembered mostly for the chaos he created, because man, what an incredible drummer. He wasn't just keeping time, he was the fireworks. Welcome back to the Raised by Hippies YouTube channel. I'm Vanessa, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most ferocious rock bands of all time, The Who, and their wild and crazy drummer, the Loon, Keith Moon. If you like hearing stories about the history of music in the 20th century, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss the good stuff. And if you're interested in learning more about The Who in the Keith Moon era, and his fascinating bond with Pete Townshend through their mutual love of destruction, check out the link in my bio for the full documentary, streaming now on my Patreon. Now let's pop back to the swingin' 60s, where the music was grooving and the energy was explosive. It is extraordinary what Keith Moon got away with by today's standards, even by that day's standards. He would dress up in costumes and go out into the streets shouting obscenities at people. He would drive his Rolls Royce around blaring silly public service announcements just to cause trouble. This man once drove his car through the glass door of a hotel, all the way up to the reception desk where he got out and asked for his room key. This is the same man who loaded his bass drum with a ton of flash powder when the band were doing the Smothers Brothers show. The resulting explosion nearly blew them off the stage and gave both he and Pete permanent hearing damage. Roger once said, "Keith lived his entire life as a fantasy. He was the funniest man I've ever known, but he was also the saddest. He had an incredible talent, but he was completely uncontrollable. Not just a little bit uncontrollable, completely uncontrollable. But what a brilliant drummer. He's so often considered when people are talking about the greatest of all time. He sits comfortably at the top with John Bonham, Neil Peart, and Ginger Baker. But he stands alone in his approach and his style. Similar to Bonham, Keith treated the drums like they were the star instrument, not just the rhythm section. He didn't exist to keep a beat, he amplified the song. He made everything louder, stronger, more effective. Perfection was not the goal. It was all vibes with Keith Moon. The first time Keith played with The Who, he banged on the drums so hard they broke.
Keith Moon rolled up one day all ginger all over, ginger shoes, ginger corduroy trousers, ginger jacket, and his hair dyed ginger. Came up and said, I can play better than him. And this horrible impudent with his hair down like this. And got up on the drummer's drum kit and practically smashed it to pieces. And we thought, this is the man for us.
Keith Moon and The Who becoming massively famous in America and around the world only fueled Keith's already uncontrollable fire, and the load of money and power that came with it would set him on a dangerous path. Because as much as Keith was a beloved party animal who everybody wanted to be around and witness in his chaos, he was deeply insecure and terrified of being alone. He longed to be the center of attention always, and when it didn't work out that way, he got angry, depressed, and withdrawn. And the substances were always there to self-medicate. Through this, he acquired a reputation for being responsible for some of the wildest rock and roll events in the history of the genre. It's not like the band weren't aware of Keith's problems. They were probably more aware than anyone, but they often looked the other way so as to not condone his behavior, but to not take responsibility for it either. This was an approach that they'd been taking with Keith since the beginning, but they especially were affected by his delinquent choices when it came to touring and the known destruction that he caused everywhere he went.
Speaking to you for the Hewitt House Hotels, the rock star's home away from home. Don't be alarmed. I think I know what's going on.
We were in Copenhagen, and we were doing a show there. And I got to my room, and I was lucky enough to be the only member of the 32-member entourage that we carry with us to have a waterbed. And I thought, terrific.
Yes, that's Keith Moon. He's a drummer for a rock and roll group called the Master Race Blues Band. Go right ahead, Keith. Good to see you again.
And I phoned up my own personal boys and said, what we're going to do is to pick up this 2-ton waterbed, 2 tons of water, put it in the lift, send it up 2 floors, and when the lift doors open on the 9th floor, the thing is just going to come out and explode, right? So that was the plan.
We know what it's like to be on tour, going from town to town, ending up in some crummy hotel like this one. Let's face it, when you get to your room, the first thing you want to do is destroy it. What the heck? It's not yours.
And we managed to get it halfway out of the little thing, you know, that it was encapsulated in. We got it out, and the damn thing burst.
Our TV sets are loose and free because we know you rock stars do like to throw television sets into the swimming pool. Here, let me help you with that, Keith. Right out the window. You take the final toss, buddy.
I was like sitting in a chair because I was saying, okay, forward. You know, I don't do any manual work on the road. For God's sake, I'm an artist, right? Heaven forbid anything manual.
You feeling a little better now, Keith?
Well, yeah, I've been sluggish and depressed lately, but that seems to have done the trick.
Well, that's great. I'm sure you'll be good. What an amazing guy, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm saying, okay, left a bit, and all of a sudden the thing burst. And I'm sitting there, the water came up to there in the room. The next thing, the water went shoom, and the ceiling.
Oh no!
In the room below had given way, and then that went through, and the ceiling in the room below that.
What an amazing guy! It's a great kind of guy, and what a master, ladies and gentlemen. This guy, beautiful guy.
So when people say, Keith, have you ever smashed up a hotel room? I say, yes, well, 3 in one fell swoop.
Let's rewind back to 1967 for a second. It was the month of August when Keith Moon decided to hold his 21st birthday party at the Holiday Inn in Flint, Michigan, while the band were on tour in America. It started out rowdy, tons of liquor and many other substances, Keith becoming more and more disheveled and having less and less clothing as the evening went on. At one point, they dubbed the pool the world's largest martini because there was so much alcohol in it. It all started reasonably innocently when a 5-tier birthday cake was brought out, igniting a massive food fight. Icing, cake, alcohol, covering every surface. Fire extinguishers discharged in the hallways, Keith and a few others stripping naked and running through the hotel hallways, being chased by either police or security, depending on who's telling the story. So while he's sprinting through the halls, he slips on a piece of cake, smashing his head face first into the floor, famously busting out one of his front teeth. As for the famous story of him driving a Lincoln Continental into the hotel pool, it's a fun story. Keith told it all the time. Never one to pass up a good legend. But nobody ever actually saw it happen, nor was there any car in the pool that needed to be extracted. There was, however, a massive bill waiting for them the next morning, and a notice from the Holiday Inn that they were officially banned from any of their locations for life.
Together 10 years, you must have been subject to a great deal of strain and inattention.
Actually,
we do try and ignore each other.
We've always been very close, you and I, haven't we?
No.
Well,
one of the things
most of the things
that
in the
I've
history of the group
Pete Townshend
is that Keith
this
and I
group has had no history,
well.
and I've hated him ever since I began.
Since I've been doing the bulk of the
thing
writing,
is that he does no writing, and I have to do most of it. You know, the thing is
most
that
of the lyric work,
he
Keith
keeps
occasionally
doing,
helps.
you know, he thinks he does the lyrics.
The bond between Keith Moon and Pete Townshend was fascinating. Pete was reserved. He kind of had the aura of a wounded animal. Easily triggered, he spent his time thinking about spirituality and driving his creativity toward finding the answers that he was looking for within himself. And through their tour in 1969, Pete often found himself diplomatically smoothing over the fallout from Keith's antics. He negotiated with frustrated tour managers and shelled out thousands of dollars of his own money to cover repair bills. Although they were close friends who shared a fierce loyalty, their personalities were polar opposites. Pete was in a constant state of being torn between his frustration and a protective instinct towards his drummer. That constant unpredictability really took a toll on Pete's mind. After a while, Keith's antics just weren't fun anymore. They were becoming a burden, amplifying Pete's stress, forcing him into a caretaker role that he never asked for and that he found draining. This, of course, was nowhere near as bad as it would get.
Courage, apart from the fact he said I had
Terrible
ears, he said, Bill said, well, what advice would you give him? Would you tell him to stop playing entirely and leave the group?
Throw his career out
the window? Become a pauper? Would you tell him that? Well, no, actually, no. But I would advise him to learn to lip read.
For more of the story, follow the link in my bio and check out the Raised by Hippies Patreon account, where you can find the full documentary, Art of Destruction, The Who. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.